Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today my guest is Dr. Corinna Freitag, and she's an executive coach, advisor, and speaker who helps chemists and engineers resolve workplace conflict and build professional communication skills. I'm really interested to learn more about her public speaking journey as well as how she came to her current work and after working in industry for so many years. So welcome to the Teach the Geek interviews, Corinna.
Thanks so much for having me, Neil.
So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you studied chemistry. So what was the motivation to study that?
Curiosity. I was always interested, like, to learn and to know how the world works, and which really starts with like those small things, kind of like how the stripes get into like the toothpaste. And in school, I had different subjects, and chemistry was one of the most fun and at that time the most promising to explain the world to me, how it works. And that was basically the reason that I studied chemistry.
Okay, so but I saw that you didn't just start with just a initial degree. You went all the way to getting a PhD. So what was the motivation to do that?
Yeah, so I live in Germany and I studied chemistry in Germany. And in Germany, at least at that time, as I studied chemistry, it was normal that you went for the PhD. So it was kind of like, I mean, at that time in Germany, there was like the pre-diploma and the diploma degree. And then afterwards, the PhD. And at that time, if you stopped by the diploma, usually they told you kind of like that you don't really get a good job in industry. And so therefore, it was kind of like a no-brainer.
Oh, okay. So how long did it take to do the diploma as opposed to the PhD?
I mean, in total, with like also doing the postdoc in Toronto, I spent like 10 years at university. And the diploma, I think, I mean, this must have been then something around 5 years. And then for the PhD, this was something about 3.5 years.
Wow. After getting a 5 year, taking 5 years in school, you still had to do more school just to get a good job. Man, that's crazy. Well, I guess you do what you got to
Uh,
do, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is now the reason also that they changed this in Germany, that there's now the bachelor and the master degree, that people can finish it earlier.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so now that you're
Mm.
finished, okay, you did 10 years and including a postdoc. So what type of work did you do once you were finished all your schooling?
Um, so most of the work I did was in developing like new processes or to improving existing processes. And this was in the automotive and in the chemical industry. And it started with like, yeah, work in process development where they invented like these new products in research and development. And then I had to transfer it and make sure that it is like producible on large scale in production. But then afterwards, I mean, I tried different things, but the topic that was most or that went like a thread through my career was really regarding like those processes. And later, regarding improving the processes, I helped then also people like with Lean Six Sigma. So I went for a Lean Six Sigma green belt and a black belt, and then I also trained people and I mentored them in their projects to yeah, to also improve processes.
I'm curious, Corinna. I mean, typically when I hear people that go all the way and get doctorates and even do a postdoc, the goal is to enter academia. Was that ever your goal, or was it always to enter industry?
Um, it's So at the time I was at university. At one time, to me, it got clear that I will go into industry because in academia, it was just too political for me. And I thought I don't like that. And the postdoc, actually, I did not do like because I wanted to stay in academia. I did that because at the time I was finished with my PhD. My English skills were so bad that I thought, like, with this English skills, I cannot go into industry. I really need to improve them somehow. And that was the reason that I went like, or I applied like to get a scholarship, that then I could go to the university to Toronto to do their postdoc. But the main reason was actually really to improve my English skills and not to learn more about chemistry.
Did the advisor that you had at your postdoc, did he or she know that?
No, I did not tell.
So while you were there, were you at least productive in doing, I guess whatever chemistry people do?
I mean, yes, absolutely. I worked in the lab and I did like all these experiments I was supposed to do. Um, but it was not like to, yeah, get like this checkbox that I could stay in academia. It was really that, yeah, that I could improve my English skills.
Wow, that's so interesting. I think that's the first time I've ever heard anyone say something like that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I suppose that most of the people that I spoke to ever did postdocs, maybe English was their first language. So obviously going to do a postdoc to learn English wasn't necessarily something they had to do. But yeah, okay, I can see, oh wow, hey, you travel a long way to go learn them skills too. Germany to Canada, that's not a short trip for sure. Okay, all right. Okay, so you've done all that. You've worked in industry. Oh, one question I got about you working in industry. Did you ever manage people while you worked in industry?
Um, it was actually the way I managed them, like with like this. So I did not have like formal authority, which usually makes this managing even harder. So yeah, I had like to manage people, especially then also those people who worked in the lab and so on, but I did not have like this formal authority. Mm.
Oh, okay, is that something that was on purpose? Is it just when you were in industry, that's just not something you wanted to do? You just wanted to focus on your work as opposed to having to manage others?
Um, Yeah, so all the time I had the belief that I'm not really good with people, and therefore I thought I should not manage people. And now probably like you have a big question mark, like, yeah, but when I'm not good with people, like, why did I become like a coach? So, and I can answer this because in 2018 I started to work together with a coach. And she asked me to do like an exercise where I had to ask other people about my strengths. And then the thing that came back like from every person was like that I'm good with people. And so I was kind of like, me? So I had so like a huge blind spot. And yeah, but that was kind of like the reason that I thought I should not manage people directly. Mm.
That is so interesting because I think a lot of times, especially with the people that I've interviewed on the podcast, the ones that ended up managing people, I don't know if I've ever asked them that question. Do you actually like people? Because I think with a lot of people, they just see that as the next step. You're an individual contributor for a number of years, and then after a while, you're just that's what you do. You manage people, but it's a completely different skill that you need to have to manage people as opposed to
Mhm.
being someone who's just responsible for your own work. I don't know if a lot of people really give that all that much consideration when they go into those roles. In fact, oftentimes when I ask people if they've managed people and they say yes, and I ask them what's one thing that you didn't anticipate before you started working with people, and they say it's the people. It's the actual the issues that people have and they bring into the workplace, and you as the leader, as the manager has to be
Mhm.
responsible for these things. And man, when I think about that's the main reason I never wanted to be a manager of people, because people are nuts. And they come with all kinds of problems, and you got to figure it, and you have to figure it all out. It's like, man, I ain't Dr. Phil. I'm not a therapist. What am I supposed to do? It's like a whole bunch of issues that you're not equipped really to really figure out, but yet here are these problems on your plate, and yet you require these people to be productive and do their work, and you got to figure it out.
Yeah, very true. But I mean, I think for me, probably I was really too considerate about this. But in hindsight, what I figured I was like, all the time that I worked on like developing these new processes and like improving those processes, like for me, the main focus was really to develop new processes and to improve them in such a way to make it easier and smoother for people. So it was really for me the people side and not the process side. But it took me some time to figure this out.
So, what was the motivation for you to leave corporate to become a coach?
Yeah, that was in 2018. I came back to Germany from like a 3 years delegation to Asia. And so I'm I realized that something is missing in my job. I was not so passionate about it anymore. And that was then actually the time that I started to work together with a coach. And I also tried other things. And so I realized that I want to become a coach myself, which actually took me some time. In 2021, I realized this, and then in 2021, in 2022, I started my training to get certified as an executive coach, and then also to receive my credentials through the International Coaching Federation.
What's the job of a coach?
The job of a coach, yeah, to help people to overcome their challenges, and which can be like all kind of challenges. And I mean, where I currently niche into is that I help chemists and engineers to resolve like workplace conflict and also to build professional communication skills so that they can advance in their careers. And yeah, it's really to help people.
I'm curious about coaches because I once heard that as a coach, your job isn't to give people answers, it's to ask them questions so that they come to the answers themselves. Is that true?
Yes, and especially I mentioned that I have the certification by the International Coaching Federation. And so their approach is that you really ask only open-ended questions and that you reflect on what the person said, that they come to their own answer. And I mean, what I have to say, and that's the reason also that I call myself coach and advisor, because I use like a mixed approach. I use the ICF style with like asking open-ended questions, but then because I have like this vast experience of like 10 years at university and almost 20 years in the industry, so I also use this experience to give advice to my clients. And the interesting thing is that most of the time, the feedback I get from my clients is that what they love most is when I give them advice.
Oh, I'm not surprised by that at all because whenever I hear the definition of coaching as being someone who asks questions so that the person comes to the idea themselves, it makes me think I would never hire a coach because a lot of times I'm looking for answers, and if I had the answers, then I would answer them already. So the reason I'm talking to somebody is for them to help me come to this answer. And if you actually have the answer, then damn it, give me the answer.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting part is like with the coaching education, you learn to ask questions in such a way that then a lot of the times it helps people to get to the answer. But sometimes it's really kind of like, I mean, yeah, as you just mentioned, like if you know the answers, then yes, just give the answer. And to me, it's also because when you become a coach, then you do like all these coaching hours, and then also like you practice like with other coaches. And or several times I really got frustrated. Only like people only ask those questions, and I was kind of like, I don't know it, so and I don't know to get there. I really need advice. So therefore, yeah, I totally get your point.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so with the people that you work with, what's a typical issue that a client may come to you with that you help them with?
So, one typical issue is that they have a conflict, either with like one person, and usually it's kind of like a pattern, and they might not be aware of this pattern, but it's kind of like that they have a conflict with this kind of person. So, for example, if they would leave their job and would go like for a new job, and they would meet like the same kind of person there, they would have this conflict again. Or that they have like a conflict or conflicts with all kind of like people, like with their colleagues, team members, their managers. Um, these are common things like people come to me with.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can totally see you helping them see that pattern because if you don't help them see that pattern, they may blame the company. Like, oh, these companies are against me. I can't work everywhere. It's like, no, man, it's like you got issues with these types of people, and no matter where
Mhm.
you go, if you meet these people, you're going to have these issues, and that's something you need to figure out sooner rather than later. So I'm glad that there are people like you that can help people with that because if not, then those people become disgruntled and they complain about all their companies online, on social media, and then people will read that and think I ain't gonna work there. No, I don't want to work there because that's a crappy company. It's like no, that's just a crappy person. Didn't see the pattern.
Yeah, and I mean, as an example, one of my clients, she had this pattern that she was, yeah, really bad with what she called grumpy old white man. And she was a chemical engineer. So meeting this kind of like person, the likelihood is very high if you work as a chemical engineer.
Wow. And so
Mm,
every time, so I'm sure you meet that person and you put that label on them, you already in your mind think, oh, we're not going to get along because they fit that archetype. And yeah, figuring out why, what is it about those people that it makes you upset, really? I think that's probably something to figure out. And what's the best way to talk to such people? Because there's all different types of people in the workplace, and I mean, it's in your best interest to figure out how to work with all of them, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Corinna, when I first started this podcast and YouTube channel, it was about the public speaking journeys of people with technical backgrounds, but it also started with my own struggles having to give presentations in front of others as a technical person. So I'm curious, in the work that you do, what do you think is the number one reason that technical people struggle with communicating with others?
Um, yeah, the technical as a number one reason, that's a good question. I mean, so far I have to say I came really like along like or what I saw with my clients were like different patterns. But especially for technical people, I mean, a lot of them, and it does not mean that all of them, but a lot of them, they have like this hyper rational mind. And so they like to use facts and data and logic for everything. And so they like to omit emotions, and which I totally get myself, because also very often I wish kind of like that all people are like Commander Spock from Star Trek Enterprise. But that's not like the real world works. And so, yeah, therefore it's important like to learn also these other skills and to get along with people and not only to focus on the rational mind. I mean, it's a great tool, but not for everything. It's kind of like a hammer is a great tool to like hammer a nail into the wall, but not to paint a canvas.
Yeah, I totally take that point, Corinna. And when you were saying your answer, it made me think, you're right. As a technical person, they may value logic and reason and data more than the average person. But you also have to realize that there's other people who have different personality types than you out there, and they want to be
Mm.
spoken to in the way that's beneficial to them, just like you want to be spoken to in a way that's beneficial to you. So the best, I guess, path forward is to figure out what those ways are to speak to those people, just like those grumpy old white men.
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to speak to them. You got to figure out how to speak to the non-grumpy old white men. You got to figure out how to speak to the different people because, as I said, you want to be spoken to in a certain way, and you should. It's in your best interest to figure out how to speak to all the other personality types in the way they appreciate as well.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't really think about that all that much. Okay, so so with those people that talk about the importance of logic and data and reason when it comes to communicate with the way they appreciate communication, well, how do you work with them so that they can overcome that hurdle?
Mhm. So, as I kind of like mentioned already, that I use an interdisciplinary approach with like using those classical coaching techniques, but then also using my vast experience like from university and industry. Like the one thing is to give advice, but then also the other thing is that I like to use those tools I learned in the corporate world and like to transfer them like for personal development. Plus, I train what I call my clients mental toughness. And so, with this interdisciplinary approach, this was so far very successful to help them. And maybe for the listener, I mean, to solve conflict, I use then, in addition, a three-step approach, where in the first step, um, people need like to understand the other person, like their style, their world, and really to ask questions. And with the second step, they need to understand like their own position and their goals and also like what they are willing to give up, but also where is their bottom line. And based on those two things, the third thing is that then they find what is the common ground with them and the other person. And what I usually do with my clients is that then I ask like all these questions and also I reflect and based on what I hear, yeah, I reflect back. And then usually they get pretty quickly to those things and which then helps them to resolve the conflict.
With your own journey in getting better at, well, in communicating with others, Corinna, is that something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
Um, um, I have not been good at it. And I mean, especially with conflict, I never learned it. So in my family, there was no conflict, but not because everything was like, yeah, rose colored and the sun was shining. It was just that, yeah, my parents did not have this conflict. They just ignored it. So I never really learned it. And which means that for me, it was really a struggle and also then communicating professionally and to bring things to the point. And for me, I have to say it was really practice like in the university, at the corporate world. But then also, I mean, I took like seminars like for continuing education to get better with these things. And finally, really the education to become a coach. This helped me a lot. Then also to learn additional concepts like what to use to get better.
Okay. I'm also curious, do you ever get nervous before speaking with other people? And if so, how do you manage your nerves?
Um, so I absolutely get nervous. Yes. I mean, especially I would say I have usually a high level of anxiety. And what I do is that I do exercises with which I concentrate on my senses. So, for example, like that I concentrate on my breathing, but also, for example, that I use my sense of hearing and I listen to the sounds around me, or that I use the sense of touch. And so usually I also have like an object with me and just like that I can play around with and use my sense of touch. So these are things I do.
When I do virtual presentations, I also use, I guess, I never thought of it this way, but I guess something to manage the nerves with the sense of touch. I have a ball that I squeeze. Unfortunately, you can't do that in person because you look kind of weird. But but virtually, it's easy to do and no one can tell. In fact, I have
Yeah.
a ball here,
Yeah.
got a ball
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
got another ball here,
Yes.
got a whole bunch of balls.
Wow. Oh, you have a lot of balls.
I
Yeah,
got a
and
lot
I
of
have
balls.
like these different like things like my sense of touch.
All right,
Yes, this is really far easier virtually. And I mean also before, for example, giving a presentation virtually, then I also like to use humming or that I use a tongue twister. And but if the presentation is in person, then what really helps me, so just as an example, a few weeks ago I had a presentation in another city. And so from the hotel to the location of the presentation, it was about 30 minutes by foot. And my husband said like, oh, you take a taxi there, right? And I was kind of like, no, if it's not raining like cats and dogs, I will walk there, because I was so happy to walk there, because just walking is getting like the stress and nervousness out of my body. Mm.
Okay, so okay, that's interesting. So maybe if you're giving a presentation at a conference, don't stay at the hotel. Don't stay at the conference or the hotel where the conference is happening. Stay at another hotel and walk in. So help you manage your nerves. That's interesting. This has been a great conversation, Corinna. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Via LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn, and I also like post there regularly content, and so they can connect with me and also like DM me. And I also have like a homepage which is like my name, CorinnaFreitag.de, and where then also you find a link to LinkedIn, but also like to my email. And also if you want to book a call with me, you find this on my homepage, but also on LinkedIn. So these are good ways to get in contact with me.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Corinna.
Thanks, Neil.